wary that engaging might only fuel Karen's crusade. Local news stations picked up the story, some framing it as passenger versus veteran, the great seat debate, sending reporters to track down anyone who witnessed a mid-flight meltdown. The protagonist, exhausted, politely declined interviews, but Karen jumped at the chance to talk, spinning a wild tale of airline corruption. She declared she would hold a public expose at a local community hall, inviting anyone who felt cheated by fake heroes. The protagonist's anxiety soared, realizing she was turning a personal spat into a public trial of his character. The airline's corporate office, sensing PR trouble, contacted him, asking if he wanted them to issue a stronger statement. But he remained conflicted, not wanting his personal service record splashed across headlines. Meanwhile, Karen printed flyers for her event, slapping the protagonist's photo across them, calling him a fraudster. People snapped pictures of these flyers taped to lampposts, posting them online, where some ridiculed Karen's desperation, while others wondered if there was more to the story. The protagonist confided in a few trusted friends, who urged him to stand firm, certain that Karen's lies would crumble under scrutiny. But he still dreaded the possibility of facing a crowd of strangers calling him out for a fake status he didn't fake. Days ticked by, with Karen building hype for her expose, claiming she had damning evidence to present. The protagonist's phone lit up with reporters' voicemails, each wanting a statement. He dodged them all, focusing on collecting any documents that might prove his service beyond doubt if it came to a public showdown. Tension ratcheted higher when Karen posted a countdown clock on her social media, teasing a big reveal about the protagonist's real identity. Her followers bombarded the protagonist's social accounts with hate messages or mocking memes, though some onlookers defended him, calling Karen a bully. One evening, the protagonist discovered a small group of Karen supporters milling around his street, phones out, hoping to catch him slipping in some way. He called local police, who reminded them that harassment or trespassing wouldn't be tolerated. The group dispersed, but not without chanting that they'd see him at Karen's expose. The protagonist began losing sleep, heart racing at the thought of confronting a hostile crowd, worried that his personal details might be publicly dissected. At the same time, he felt anger stirring, knowing that Karen was dragging his legitimate service through the mud just because she lost a seat. The airline quietly offered him legal support if defamation charges became necessary, but he wasn't sure if that was the right path. Word on social media hinted that some ex-service members might attend Karen's event, outraged by her disrespect for real veterans, though it was unclear how many. The protagonist's few allies urged him to show up, present his service record, and shut her down publicly, but he feared that might only spark more drama. On the eve of Karen's event, tension hit a fever pitch, with local news announcing they'd be covering it live. The protagonist spent hours sorting through old certificates and ID cards, building a small portfolio that proved his rank and medical discharge. A swirl of dread and determination filled him. This might be the only way to end the smear campaign once and for all. Rather than limiting herself to internet rants, Karen now hosts a public event to display her evidence and humiliate the protagonist in front of a live audience. The protagonist, torn between ignoring her or confronting her lies, decides to attend in person to settle the matter once and for all. The gathering draws curious neighbors, local veterans offended by Karen's disrespect, and media reporters hungry for a scoop. The stage is set for a chaotic face-off as Karen attempts to rally a crowd behind her claims, while the protagonist must decide how much personal detail to reveal to clear his name. She booked the local community hall for Saturday afternoon, advertising the event as a truth unveiled session, plastering the neighborhood with flyers that feature the protagonist's blurred photo and the words "fake veteran" in bold letters. The immediate reaction was mixed. Some people rolled their eyes at her theatrics, while others, lured by curiosity or a sense of duty, considered showing up to see if she truly had proof. The protagonist debated staying far away, not wanting to dignify her spectacle, but realized that silence might be spun as an admission of guilt. A close friend pointed out that letting Karen's lies stand uncontested could erode the protagonist's hard-earned reputation, especially among those who didn't know him well. So he spent days collecting service records, photos, and a few official letters verifying his honorable discharge, stuffing them in a discreet folder. Meanwhile, word spread that a group of local veterans, outraged by Karen's disrespectful antics, planned to attend, some wearing hats or jackets that hinted at their service. The day arrived under an overcast sky, the community hall's parking lot filling with cars as people shuffled inside, unsure if they'd witness a genuine expose or a farce. Karen, dressed in business casual attire, bustled around the small stage, her phone live streaming to an online audience that egged her on with comments like, "Expose the fraud." She set up a projector and laptop, presumably to display her evidence, while a few supporters handed out flyers rehashing her version of the airplane seat fiasco. The protagonist arrived quietly, wearing a simple shirt and carrying his folder of documents, heart pounding at the thought of facing a hostile crowd. Upon spotting him, Karen's face lit with a sort of manic triumph, as if she'd cornered her prey at last. She beckoned him to the front, proclaiming that she'd finally prove his deceit, inviting everyone to watch him squirm under scrutiny. A hush fell over the hall, rows of folding chairs nearly full, some folks filming on their phones, others just leaning forward expectantly. Karen launched into a dramatic retelling of the airplane meltdown, painting herself as a victim who only wanted fairness, insisting the protagonist had cunningly stolen her seat by faking a sob story about military service. She presented a slideshow of random screenshots, blurred pictures from plain, out-of-context airline emails, none of which offered any real proof. The tension mounted as she reached a slide claiming the protagonist's name didn't appear on a certain public registry of veterans, but a quick read revealed it was incomplete data or possibly the wrong registry. She forged on, ignoring murmurs of doubt from the audience, culminating in a triumphant grin as she declared, "So there you have it. He's no veteran." At that moment, a man in the front row, wearing a Vietnam veteran cap, stood up and asked Karen if she checked official Department of Defense records or was just relying on Google. Karen flinched, stammering that she had done her due diligence, but the man rolled his eyes, stating he knew how easy it was to be omitted from certain basic searches. Applause rippled from a few seats, and Karen's face reddened, frustration evident as her narrative cracked. She tried to regain control, pointing at the protagonist, demanding he prove himself right now. All eyes turned to him, some with sympathy, others with curiosity. He took a breath, stepped forward, and opened his folder. The room went silent as he produced an official discharge paper, a letter of commendation from his unit, and a doctor's note explaining partial hearing loss from an overseas incident, one reason he needed more comfortable seating on flights. A wave of emotion passed through the crowd, a few heads nodding in respect, while Karen's mouth dropped open. She sputtered about how these documents could be forged, but the authenticity was clear to anyone with experience. The Vietnam veteran stepped closer, scanning the letter's official stamps, then turned to the audience, confirming it looked legitimate to him. The crowd broke into applause, some offering quiet thanks for protagonist's service. Karen, cornered, tried to spin it, claiming the airline still scammed her by not upgrading her too, but the audience's sympathy had dried up. Even a few of her supporters whispered that she'd gone too far, glancing around uncomfortably. Sensing her meltdown, Karen raised her voice, accusing everyone of ganging up on her, proclaiming she'd take this to national news. The local veterans in attendance weren't amused, a couple stepping forward to politely but firmly ask her to stop insulting a fellow service member. One brandished his own documentation, explaining how misinformed Karen's entire search process was, that real military records often aren't as publicly accessible as she assumed. Defeated but still defiant, Karen stormed off the stage, phone clutched in her hand, filming the crowd, claiming they were all brainwashed. The protagonist, exhausted but relieved, fielded quiet thanks from onlookers who recognized the courage it took to reveal personal medical details just to silence a baseless smear. A local reporter present in the hall approached him, asking for a statement, but he politely declined, not wanting to feed more drama. Meanwhile, Karen vanished into a side exit, live streaming to her dwindling online audience, ranting that she'd been set up, that the fake documents were part of a conspiracy. Yet the crowd's reaction spoke volumes. Most dismissed her meltdown, some even laughing at how thoroughly her big expose backfired. As the event ended, people filed out, shaking their heads at the spectacle, and a few neighbors approached the protagonist, apologizing for believing Karen's hype. He accepted their apologies with a tired smile, grateful that the truth had finally been laid bare in a public forum. Karen's much-hyped public expose turned into a humiliating disaster when her flimsy evidence collapsed under scrutiny. The protagonist calmly presented legitimate military records, and local veterans in attendance openly refuted Karen's wild claims. Overwhelmed and ridiculed, Karen stormed out, but not before accusing everyone of conspiring against her. Though the protagonist emerged vindicated, the spectacle drained him, and Karen left with her pride in tatters, still determined to salvage her reputation. How Key Point 5 introduces fresh developments, no repeat tactics. Having failed to discredit the protagonist in a public forum, Karen seeks a tabloid news outlet eager for sensational stories. She pitches an exclusive about a supposed airline conspiracy, rebranding the protagonist as the soldier who stole first class in a grand scheme to cheat honest customers. The protagonist, longing for peace, learns the tabloid is planning a slanted feature that could reignite public interest. Tensions flare again as he contemplates legal defamation action, while Karen doubles down, desperate to recast herself as the real victim. She slunk home from the community hall, humiliated by the fiasco, but her mind churned with a new plan to resurrect her image. The next morning, a small tabloid site, known for clickbait headlines and scandal-mongering, received an email from Karen offering them an explosive story about a phony veteran. Their editor, smelling easy controversy, responded within minutes, eager to run anything that might drive traffic. Karen spent hours on the phone with the tabloid's junior reporter, weaving a narrative about how the airline conspired with the protagonist to stage a phony military status for public sympathy. The reporter, naive or complicit, ate it up, promising a big splash article titled something like "Fake Soldier Scams Airline, the First Class Hoax." Meanwhile, the protagonist, trying to recover from the public meltdown, learned of Karen's new alliance when a friend forwarded a screenshot of the tabloid's teaser tweet. The short snippet read, "Coming soon, insider speaks out on airline's fake hero," featuring a silhouette vaguely resembling the protagonist. A cold knot formed in his stomach. He'd hoped the community hall disaster had ended Karen's crusade, but she was taking it national in a tabloid. He weighed his options: ignore the tabloid and hope it fizzled, or lawyer up for potential defamation claims. Some friends urged him to sue, but he hesitated, wary of fueling Karen's victim narrative. Over the next few days, the tabloid teased the story relentlessly, dropping cryptic hints like "wait until you see how they fool the entire flight" to drum up anticipation. Online trolls latched onto the drama, flooding comment sections with speculation, some repeating Karen's lies, others mocking her inability to produce real proof. The protagonist tried to stay offline, focusing on daily life, yet his phone kept buzzing with messages from acquaintances who saw the tabloid hype. The airline's PR team reached out, expressing concern about the looming article, offering to publicly reaffirm the protagonist's status if needed. Unsure that would help or just stoke the fire, he politely declined, trusting that truth might outlast the rumor mill. Meanwhile, Karen boasted on social media that she had rock-solid evidence that would shock the nation, fueling a fresh wave of cynicism among those who'd already seen her fail at the community hall. A neighbor caught Karen bragging that she'd even do a live interview once the tabloid piece dropped, hoping to catapult herself to viral fame. The tension spiked when the tabloid posted a release date, promising an exclusive story that Monday morning. The protagonist braced for the worst, gathering documents and contacting a lawyer, just in case. Over the weekend, local news stations, always hungry for a trending topic, started referencing the upcoming tabloid feature, some presenting it as alleged new evidence. The protagonist's stress mounted, recalling how a single meltdown on a plane had spiraled into a national fiasco. On Sunday night, the tabloid posted a final teaser, a shadowy photo of the protagonist's face, the word "fraud" in bold red letters. Karen, reveling in the attention, posted a gleeful countdown on her page, boasting that she'd get the last laugh. But early Monday morning, the protagonist's lawyer fired off a sternly worded letter to the tabloid's editor, warning of potential legal action if they published demonstrable falsehoods. The tabloid hesitated, eventually delaying the article's release by a few hours, presumably to review their content. Furious at the delay, Karen accused the tabloid of cowardice, spamming the reporter's inbox with pleas to push forward. Finally, mid-afternoon, the tabloid piece went live, but it was surprisingly tame compared to Karen's hype, a meandering story that repeated her accusations but offered no new evidence. The reporter had evidently trimmed out the more outrageous claims, likely spooked by the lawyer's letter. Readers quickly dismissed the article as recycled drama, with the comments section filled with people referencing Karen's public humiliation. Karen exploded on social media, ranting that the tabloid watered down the truth, accusing them of bowing to legal threats. She tried linking to the story anyway, urging her followers to read between the lines, but fell flat, overshadowed by more pressing news. Sensing her star fading, Karen pivoted to a live stream, promising to reveal the raw evidence the tabloid wouldn't print, only present the same blurry screenshots from before. The stream attracted a small audience, mostly trolls mocking her. The protagonist, meanwhile, exhaled relief, seeing that the big threat fizzled. He quietly thanked his lawyer, who suggested they remain vigilant in case Karen tried another angle. As the days passed, the tabloid story sank into obscurity, overshadowed by actual news.